Well, hello everybody. I am going to be reading chapters 12 through 14. And the last that we left off was Will had come back for Lisa, and um, he thinks that she's in trouble because of the kids. He still doesn't believe these kids. And so he said that I'll be back, Lisa, I promise I won't let them do this to you. And then by the time everyone came back, he had fled the jungle and they were gone. So here we go. Chapter 12, still day 4, at 11:10 p.m. The jungle was becoming familiar to Will. Who would have dreamed that he would ever know one clump of ferns from another? But he did. No, that wasn't exactly true. The individual plants all looked alike, especially by torchlight. It was a progression that he was beginning to recognize. Coconut palms on the right, broadleaf whatchamacallits on the left, big step over the fallen log, those weird crisscrossing ferns dead ahead. He was almost home. He felt a twinge of pride. He used to be the kind of kid who fell apart when the cable went down or when the family ran out of microwave popcorn. An 8-minute power failure threw him into a panic. But now he was just making his way through the dense jungle on his own in the near blackness of night. If only Lisa could see him. She had seen him, he reminded himself, barely 10 minutes ago, and she had refused to come with him. How was he ever going to rescue her? To rescue Lisa, he thought, you first have to rescue yourself. But how would he accomplish that? Where should he go? What should he do? For a moment, the silvery fog swirled around him once more. He closed his eyes and fought through it. And when he opened them again, he was at the twin palms of camp. He brushed a few handfuls of dried leaves onto the remains of his fire and reached down with his torch. The kindling caught quickly, and in the glow of the sudden flare, he saw that he was not alone. Uh-oh. At first, the creature looked like a small haystack. Then the massive head swung around and whimpered. Will jumped. It was the wild boar. Run for it! He stood poised, waiting for the attack. It didn't come. The animal whimpered again. Will squinted in the firelight. Blood stained the bristly snout where the arrowhead protruded. His hand tightened on the bow over his shoulder, and he pulled an arrow from his pocket. He could kill this thing. Kill it and eat it. Yeah, right. You're too squeamish to dig out a splinter. He took a step forward. Careful, nothing's more dangerous than a wounded animal. But this one was dying. Well, duh, that's why you shot it, right? Cautiously, Will approached the boar and squatted down beside it. The red piggy eyes seemed almost colorless now, sunken into the head snout body. He leaned over until he was close enough to feel the hot wind of the boar's tortured breathing. The animal regarded him suspiciously, but made no attempt to move. He reached out a hand, and the boar shrank from him, but it lacked the strength to get up. When he closed his hand on the shaft of the arrow, the boar squealed in pain, shaking its snout. Luckily, the arrow pulled out smoothly and easily. There was no barbed head, just a sharpened point at the end. Fresh blood trickled from the hole. Why was he doing this? This animal was protein and easy hunting, too. Protein meant energy, and energy was what he needed to rescue Lisa and figure out a way out of this mess. Will fitted an arrow into the bow and pulled back, straining to aim for the creature's neck. What neck? It's all neck. Its butt is practically an extension of its neck. He circled the boar, aiming behind its ears. It regarded him through distant, colorless eyes. Will was sweating now. This Guam humidity always made him perspire, but now it was pouring off him like Niagara Falls. Why couldn't he do this? He was so stupid. He ate bacon cheeseburgers all the time. This was no different. Except, Will thought, when you go to McDonald's, you can't feel your dinner's hot breath on your leg before you eat it. He set down the bow. Tell you what, he said out loud to the boar. I'm going to find some more wood for the fire. You've got till I get back to beat it. But when he returned with an armload of twigs, the boar hadn't moved an inch. I'm going to take a little nap. If you're not gone by the time I wake up, your dinner. Sleep did not come. He kept peeking through half-closed eyelids at the boar, which was still in his spot by the fire. Will you get lost? Raged Will. Don't you realize your life is on the line? but somewhere deep down, he had a sneaking suspicion that the boar was smarter than he was. Will glared at the animal. You don't think I've got the guts to do it? Well, you're wrong. You've got the rest of the night to scram. If you're still here at sunup, I'm having boar cutlets for lunch. In the morning, he awoke to find his legs numb and tingling. He looked down the length of his body. The boar was fast asleep, curled up on his feet. Aw, come on, boar, get off. He kicked himself free, struggling upright, and limped around, trying to restore his circulation. The boar followed him like an adoring puppy. You're supposed to be gone. Will was half disgusted and half pleased. The boar rubbed against Will's legs, knocking him over with its sheer size and weight. Hey, cut it out, boar. Boar? Down he went, landing flat on his behind. I guess I better give you a name, he laughed. I can't just call you Boar. But what did you call a hairy, squinted-eyed slob with no neck and a bad attitude? I know, he grinned. Pigface. A frown. Pigface fit to a T, but another name came to mind. Ratface. That made no sense. The face was piggy, not ratty. Why did the name sound so right and so familiar? Ratface, he said out loud. The boar spit out a mouthful of chewed leaves and delivered a resounding belch. And Ratface it remained. That's the end of chapter 12. All right, chapter 13, day 5, 8:05 a.m. In addition to much needed shelter and supplies, the inflatable lifeboat provided an unexpected bonus with its sun canopy, darkness. For the first time since they had landed on the island, the tropical sun didn't wake up Luke at dawn. He would have slept hours longer, they all might have, if it hadn't been for the noise. It was distant at first, but it grew louder and louder. The castaways listened intently. It was the buzz of an airplane engine. Could that mean? Are they leaving? Ian asked excitedly. Please, God, breathed Charla. They scrambled out of the raft and looked up for the twin-engine seaplane, but the dense canopy of branches and palm fronds blocked out the sky except for tiny glimpses of bright blue here and there. The beach, exclaimed JJ, breaking into a run. Luke grabbed his wrist and held on. It's too dangerous. They might see you. They waited for the slow fade in the engine sounds that would indicate the aircraft was far away. Instead, the buzz remained at full volume, almost as if it were coming from directly overhead. And then, all at once, the noise died out. Luke frowned. That's weird. You think they're still here? Asked Lisa. Charlotte was confused. But why would they use their plane if they weren't leaving? Ian shrugged. Maybe they're gone. Sound over water can sometimes do some funny things. We've got to go over there and find out, Luke decided. That lagoon is on the other side of the island, Charlotte reminded him. It takes half the day to get there. Maybe not, Ian put in. We've got a compass now. We can estimate the direction and take a shortcut through the jungle. That should save a lot of time. They retrieved the compass and Ian lined up the needle with north. I'd say just about due east, he guessed. Maybe a few degrees to the south. He rummaged through the survival pack, coming up with a knife. JJ was highly amused. They've got guns, kid. What are you going to do with that? Floss? Ian took the blade and made a small cut in the bark of a coconut palm. I saw a documentary on Lewis and Clark on the History Channel. He explained. Always mark your trail so you can find your way back. It's much easier going through the jungle, although they were constantly sidestepping dense thickets, some of them 30 or 40 feet wide. In less than an hour, they had reached a low bluff overlooking the shore. They had made a left turn and headed south. Hey! All at once, Lisa pitched forward, landing flat on her face in the underbrush. Must have been some of those big island joker ants, snickered JJ, helping her up. Watch out. They also give wedgies. Very fun. She fell silent in mid-word, staring at the ground. I know this sounds crazy, but was there ever a sidewalk here, do you think? Oh, sure, JJ said sarcastically. They laid it down back when they built the mini mall. Look, she interrupted. Half buried in the damp earth was a familiar gray shape. It was broken and crumbling, with weeds and brush coming up through the cracks. But the edge that stuck out of the ground was perfectly straight. There was no question about it. This was a slab of poured concrete. Here's another, called Charlotte, kicking at the mud a few feet ahead of them. They spread out, digging with their hands and feet. They found slabs extending all the way from the bluffs, hundreds of yards into the deepest jungle. Maybe it's the Walk of Fame, suggested JJ, where all the celebrity lizards make impressions of their tails in the cement. It proves one thing, said Luke. The island wasn't always deserted. People lived here. And later than the invention of paved roads, Ian pointed out. Charla nodded. But who builds a road in the middle of the jungle? They all turned to Ian, but for once he had no answer. The castaways continued south. It wasn't long before they spotted the sheltered lagoon where they had witnessed the murder just 2 days before. To Luke, it seemed as if 100 years had passed since then. Get down, he ordered. The five dropped to a crouch, peering out through the trees. Lisa hovered over Luke's shoulder. Can you see anything? Are they gone? There, beached side by side, were 2 seaplanes. Chapter 4, Day 5, 9:50 a.m. Charlotte was bewildered. Another plane? Luke stared in disbelief, but the truth was undeniable. The sound they'd heard hadn't been the departure of the first aircraft, but the arrival of the second. They've got company, he commented. JJ frowned. Yeah, but why meet here? This island is less than boring. There's nothing but bugs and bananas. Privacy, Luke told him. These guys are criminals. They're probably up to something illegal. Ian pointed out a place where the jungle advanced down a coral ramp. There was an excellent cover in the dense underbrush. Plus, it was in spying range of the shore and a good 20 feet above sea level. It would be nearly impossible for the men to spot them there. It took another few minutes to creep down the steep slope. Luke was in the lead, with the others in line behind him, keeping their heads low. They crouched in the vines, peering out over the lagoon. The second plane was a single-engine job, smaller than the first one, but with a large cargo hold on its underside. Look, hissed Charla. It was the red-haired man. Instinctively, Luke's eyes traveled to the thin man's waist where his gun was jammed into his belt. That's the killer, he whispered to Lisa and JJ. The guy he's talking to must be from the second plane. 4 others came into view, Red Hair's partners and 2 newcomers. They were carrying the crates that had been unloaded from the first aircraft. Red Hair pried open the first box and rummaged inside. Blankets? Mused Charlotte in perplexity. There was something wrapped in them. It was long and gleaming white, taller than the men themselves. It took 2 of them to hold it up, and the one clutching the foot-thick base was struggling. The thing tapered in a slight curve down to a soft point on the other end. Let me guess, put in JJ. It's the world's largest golf tee. Ian's mouth formed an O of sudden understanding. Ivory. Lisa stared at him. It's soap? The younger boy shook his head. The other kind of ivory, I think that's an elephant tusk. I saw a show about it once. That's why people hunt elephants, for their ivory. But that's wrong, protested Charla. It's also against the law, isn't it? Asked Luke. So's murder, JJ reminded him darkly. They watched as the men unwrapped 3 more tusks, one the same size as the first and a shorter pair about 4 feet long. They then turned their attention to a second case. It was smaller, but more high-tech, with ceiling latches and various knobs and indicator dials. As they opened it, a cloud of vapor arose and dissipated into the tropical humidity. I was afraid of that, Ian said seriously. Inside, they could make out dozens of transparent jars. What is that? Asked Luke. I think those are animal parts, Ian told them. Probably from an endangered species, tiger most likely. Parts? Lisa asked weakly. Fur, claws, Ian replied. Meat, vital organs, bones. Yuck, was JJ's opinion. Charlotte looked as if she was about to throw up. But why? Who wants that stuff? In a lot of Asian cities, tiger parts are a delicacy for the super rich or even a miracle cure. It was all in the documentary I saw. A full-grown tiger can be worth close to $250,000 on the streets of Taipei or Hong Kong. So what you're saying, Luke began, is that these guys are smugglers? Ian nodded. Dealers in ivory and illegal animal parts. The men from the first plane, they must buy from poachers around Africa and Asia. Then they sell to the second group. But why here? Asked Lisa. Isn't it obvious? Replied Luke. We're totally isolated. In a million years, the police would never catch them making the exchange. It's probably a halfway point, too, Ian guessed. They could be coming from Japan, Korea, the Philippines, Hong Kong, anywhere, even Hawaii. That could be why they killed that guy, added Charla solemnly. Maybe he was ripping them off or something. They watched grimly as the smugglers went over the rest of the shipment. In addition to 3 more refrigerated containers, there was an entire crate of what appeared to be rhinoceros horns. It's possible that no animals were killed for those, Ian mused. You can cut a rhino's horn off and it will grow back. It's actually a type of hair. Then it's ground up and sold as medicine. By this time, Charlotte was shaking with outrage. They probably killed those poor rhinos anyway, just for the fun of it. Satisfied that the shipment was in order, one of the newcomers went over and stepped inside the single-engine plane. A moment later, he reappeared, helping an enormously fat man dressed in all-white silk suit that gleamed even brighter than the ivory. Mr. Big, snickered JJ. Yes, said Ian seriously. I mean, that's probably not his name, but he seems to be the one in charge. Sweat poured in streaks down the man's face and neck, and he mopped himself with a sopping handkerchief, fighting a losing battle to stay dry. In his free hand, he carried a small suitcase. He was accompanied by the biggest Doberman pinscher Luke had ever seen. What's up with the suitcase? Asked JJ. Is he moving in? Then Mr. Big opened the luggage. They goggled. Money, exclaimed Charlotte in a strangled voice. The bag was filled with neat bundles of bills, packed side by side, end to end, and on top of one another. It was a fortune. Suddenly, the big dog stiffened. Then it began to bark, a loud, raspy baritone that cut through the jungle like a hot knife through butter. It smells us, rasped Lisa, terrified. Let's go, whispered Luke. Charlotte jumped up. You don't have to ask me twice. Luke grabbed her by the shorts and pulled her down again. Slowly, he insisted, and stay low till we're well into the woods. The castaways crawled back up the slope. They could still hear the dog barking when they reached the top and ran into the depths of the jungle. There was a panic to their flight, and they scrambled through the vines, tripping and stumbling as the foliage grew thicker. Slow down, ordered Luke. But what if they come after us? Asked Charla, who was 30 feet ahead of everyone else. They probably think he was barking at a lizard or something, said Luke. Come on, somebody's going to break a leg. I'm sorry. Charlotte was almost hysterical as she stopped to let the others catch up. It's just so horrible. These poor animals. Hey, JJ cut her off. We have no proof that any of that stuff is real. Those tusks could be plastic. So how come you ran too? She shot back. The dog probably isn't in on the hoax, JJ grinned sheepishly. Every year, hundreds of actors wind up with stitches because stunt animals don't know it's just a movie. That's no stunt animal, Luke was angry now, and this is no stunt. Every time it seems like we've hit rock bottom, something even more awful happens, Lisa agreed miserably. Will goes crazy, or more smugglers come, or their dog smells us. How could it be worse? She got her answer when they followed Ian's trail back to the inflatable raft. The contents of the survival pack were scattered all around the lifeboat and their surrounding jungle. Precious supplies were opened and strewn every which way. Look, Charlotte pointed down. There, amid the dozens of sneaker prints, were animal tracks. Ian squatted to examine them. Boar, he concluded. Uh-oh, Lisa rummaged through their gear. Whatever it was, it took the mac and cheese. That's impossible, Luke exploded. It was freeze-dried and vacuum-packed. It didn't smell of anything different from the first aid kit. There's no way a pig could be smart enough to go through all this stuff and decide that was food. His fellow castaways stared uneasily back at him. Their last meal, their safety net, was gone. I don't know which one of us is the bigger pig, mumbled Will, crunching uncooked pasta. Beside him, he stood the boar, its snout pumping up and down as the two savored the freeze-dried macaroni and cheese straight out of the packet. You know, rat face, it's a lot better when you boil it, commented Will to his new companion. He picked up a fistful of orange powder and crammed it in after the macaroni. The cheese is supposed to be hot and gooey. If I ever get out of here, I'll come back and bring you some. Ratface obviously thought it was just fine the way it was. The animal never missed a swallow as it tore the plastic bag with one sharp tusk. Hey, stay on your own side, snapped Will. After this, it's back to bananas, you know. And that is the end of chapter 14. So just wanted to read that, and then we'll be reading. I still have 15, chapter 15, 16, 17, 18. Brooke, hi, Brooke. Grandma's watching.
Hi, Grandma.
And I think that's it. I want to say 20, but I was thinking there was 20, but I think there's only 19 chapters. So we'll be finishing it soon. Stay tuned. As always, love you guys. Bye.